Sales development agencies, strategies for growth. Why sales development agencies are now growth infrastructure. Outbound has never been tougher. Inboxes are crowded, connect rates keep shrinking, and reps are expected to hit higher pipeline targets with more moving parts than ever. That pressure is exactly why a modern sales development agency has shifted from a nice-to-have to real growth infrastructure for B2B teams. When average cold email replies sit around 5.8% and cold call success is roughly 2.3%, more volume alone doesn't fix the math. Precision does. The best SDR agency engagements don't act like a generic vendor that blasts sequences and books whatever will accept a calendar invite. They operate as an extension of your revenue org, tighter targeting, sharper messaging, disciplined follow-up, and clear qualification standards that protect your AE's time. In practice, that's what separates a predictable pipeline engine from an expensive experiment. At SalesHive, we've seen the same pattern repeatedly. When leaders treat sales outsourcing as a strategic operating model, not a quick fix, outbound becomes controllable again. This guide breaks down how to deploy an outsourced sales team with clear ownership, measurable outcomes, and weekly optimization, so your agency becomes a compounding system, not a one-off campaign. What a modern sales development agency actually does beyond appointment setting. Today's sales development agencies look less like old-school telemarketing and more like specialized outbound pods. A strong outbound sales agency typically supports ICP execution, list-building services, cold email and calling sequences, LinkedIn outreach services, qualification, and ongoing testing. The goal isn't to do more touches, it's to increase the percentage of touches that reach the right buyer with the right message at the right time. This matters because productivity benchmarks are clearer than ever. Median SDRs book roughly 8 to 10 qualified meetings per month, while top performers land 12 to 15. In other words, you don't need a miracle. You need repeatable execution against known benchmarks and the operational rigor to hold the system accountable. Where a cold calling agency or cold email agency adds leverage is in the infrastructure you don't want to rebuild from scratch. Hiring and training, data quality control, deliverability, tooling, QA, and coaching. That's why many B2B teams use SDR agencies to stabilize outbound while internal leaders stay focused on positioning, pricing, and closing. The ROI case for outsourcing: cost, speed, and pipeline velocity. Outsourcing works when it compresses time to pipeline and lowers the cost of learning. By 2021, 61% of B2B firms already outsourced some lead gen, and the trend has only accelerated as outbound complexity and talent costs have risen. For many teams, hire SDRs isn't a single decision. It's a long chain of recruiting, ramp, management bandwidth, tool sprawl, and retention risk. The economics are compelling when the partner is strong. Benchmarks summarized from McKinsey analyses suggest sales outsourcing can reduce cost per lead by up to 25 to 30% versus fully in-house models, largely by avoiding duplicated overhead across hiring, tooling, and management. That cost advantage only matters, though, if qualification stays high and meetings reliably convert into opportunities. Speed is the second lever. Specialized cold calling services and B2B cold calling services can produce faster iteration cycles because reps are already trained and managers already have operating rhythms. Some analyses also report 43% faster pipeline velocity for teams that outsource lead generation, which is ultimately what most sales leaders care about: how quickly activity turns into real revenue outcomes, not just busy dashboards. How to launch an agency engagement that doesn't fall apart in month 2. The fastest way to waste a sales agency relationship is to hand over a vague ICP and hope the partner figures it out. Before you start, define your ICP and TAM with enough precision that list building becomes an execution task, not a guessing game. Firmographics, buying committee roles, deal breakers, negative personas, and the few segments you actually want to win first. If the ICP is fuzzy, the agency will compensate with broader targeting, and your meeting quality will degrade. Next, treat data as the main growth lever. With average cold email conversion to close deal around 0.215%, roughly one deal per 464 emails, small errors in list quality massively distort ROI. That's why the best programs pressure test lists in cohorts, track performance by segment, and continuously prune segments that underperform on connects, replies, meetings held, and opportunity creation. Finally, launch multichannel by default. With cold email replies near 5.8% and cold call success around 2.3%, single-channel outbound is self-sabotage. A strong cold calling team coordinates email, phone, and LinkedIn touches into a consistent narrative so prospects see you multiple times before deciding whether to engage. Treat your agency like a pod inside your revenue org. Shared tools, shared feedback loops, and shared accountability for pipeline outcomes. Run the partnership like a revenue pod, not a vendor relationship. Top-performing teams integrate their sales development agency into the same operating system as internal reps. That usually means shared channels for fast feedback, access to call recordings and objections in the wild, and a seat in weekly pipeline reviews. When the agency can iterate on messaging and targeting at the same speed as your in-house team, performance compounds instead of drifting. Measurement is where most teams either win or quietly bleed budget. Don't stop at activity counts. Optimize for outcomes. Meetings held, meeting to opportunity conversion, pipeline created, and eventually closed won. Industry benchmarks commonly cite 15 to 21 meetings per month as a realistic bar in many environments, and high-performing teams often aim for roughly 80% show rates, because a booked meeting that doesn't happen is just calendar noise. We recommend aligning incentives around qualified outcomes, not raw volume. If your model allows it, use performance tiers or bonuses based on meetings held and opportunities created, not emails sent or dials made. This keeps your outsourced sales team focused on decision makers and real pain, rather than over-indexing on easy-to-book but low-value calls. Common mistakes that destroy ROI, and how to fix them fast. The most common failure pattern is outsourcing SDRs and then disappearing for a quarter. When leadership goes dark, even good agencies default to safer, broader messaging to keep activity up, and that's how you end up with low-quality meetings that frustrate AEs. The fix is simple. Hold a weekly 30 to 45-minute stand-up to review leading indicators, listen to a couple calls, and ship micro-adjustments every week. Another costly mistake is choosing the cheapest provider instead of the right one. Rock-bottom pricing often hides thin management coverage, weak data, and overworked cold callers blasting generic scripts, which can damage your domain reputation and burn your market. Evaluate SDR agencies on strategy depth, data practice, tech stack, and proof in your segment, because a slightly higher fee that creates real pipeline is cheaper than a budget program that poisons your brand. Finally, teams measure vanity metrics and miss the real bottleneck. If you only track dials or sends, you can pay for motion while conversion quietly collapses, especially when reply rates are already compressed. Build a shared metric tree from attempts to revenue, review conversion weekly, and fix the weakest link instead of arguing about performance quarterly. Optimization in 2025, AI-augmented SDRs, tighter math, and better scorecards. The agencies winning in 2025 aren't trying to replace humans. They're pairing human reps with AI to improve research, personalization, and prioritization. AI can help identify intent signals, tailor first lines, and route effort toward accounts most likely to engage, while humans handle objection nuance, rapid follow-ups, and live discovery moments. If your partner can't explain how they use AI without turning your outreach into generic automation, keep looking. Because reply rates are down and conversion is unforgiving, your scorecard has to be ruthless about where value is created. The table below is a practical way to align your B2B sales agency or internal SDR team on what matters and where you'll optimize first. When you run weekly reviews against this chain, you stop debating opinions and start diagnosing constraints. If connects are weak, tighten list building and call timing. If meetings are high but opportunities are low, fix qualification. If opportunities are strong but wins are weak, address downstream sales readiness and follow-up discipline. What to expect in the first 60 to 90 days and how to scale without chaos. A realistic ramp matters because many teams expect full pipeline in 30 days from a cold start, then declare failure before the system can stabilize. Plan for a 60 to 90-day runway to build lists, validate segments, test messaging, and tighten qualification, especially if your brand is new to outbound. The early phase should be aggressive experimentation, not premature judgment. Scaling should follow proof, not hope. Start with 1 or 2 high-potential segments, run multi-channel sequences, and expand only after you can explain why the winning segment is winning. A clean hybrid model usually works best. Keep strategy and final qualification rules in-house, while your outsourced SDR team owns net new outbound in defined segments, so there's no territory conflict or confusing handoffs. If you're evaluating partners like SalesHive, prioritize the operational basics that keep performance compounding. Disciplined list building, deliverability, multi-channel execution, and transparent dashboards that show every touch and conversion step. In practice, the best cold calling services aren't the loudest. They're the ones that run a tight system, ship weekly improvements, and stay accountable to pipeline outcomes rather than activity theater.